Everybody, Talk of the Town is up and running in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, USA. I'm Scott Montesano, and this is where the Chippewa Valley comes to talk. We are back for the month of December. So excited to have you along with us as you and I are both getting ready into the depths of the holiday season, and we've got the weather to go along with it. We got the snow on the ground, and the temperatures are cold, and you go outside, and if you're inside, you don't want to go back outside, especially after work. You get back home, and you're like, okay, we were supposed to run out and get something, and you've got to muster up all your courage to go back outside. It's got that January bite to it, but you and I both know you're not annoyed by this weather right now. You've got the snow, you've got the lights, a lot more Christmas lights out there this year, I've noticed. It's different in December. It hits differently in December. Now in January, you're just miserable, and we'll address that once we get to it. But it's a lot like turkey on Thanksgiving. Turkey on Thanksgiving tastes better than turkey on any other random day of the year. Even if you love turkey, it just tastes differently. Years of tradition, years of memories help to add to the flavor. It's kind of like you go on a trip somewhere and you've already made the decision in your head. Either you're going to hate it or you're going to love it. And no matter what actually happens, you frame yourself with that bias. Same thing. And we've got that here in December with the snow and whatnot. Speaking of the winter time, there are winter events going on. I recommend you check out our Menominee Talks podcast. A very cool episode dropped today talking about an event. If you are somebody that's into ice fishing, that's not me, but I know it's something for a lot of you. If you're somebody that is into ice fishing, I strongly recommend you take advantage of this event that they are promoting on the Menominee Talks podcast. Even if you're not somebody into ice fishing, check out the podcast, hear the story. These two parents are 3 times as strong as I ever could be if I had dealt with what they dealt with. So again, go listen to our Menominee Talks podcast and figure out what I am talking about there. And of course, check out all of our other great shows that we have. And if you're just catching up after the holidays, I know for some of you, last week you were off, you may have caught up on shows. Others of you were doing something else, and I hope you really were doing something else. If you're catching up on shows, hey, go back, listen to our last Sports Watch show. That's gotten a lot of traction with what we discussed with last week. But now to the stuff that's going on now, and as we are into December, once you get into January and February, local races begin to pop up. Local political races pop up. They become into focus as people have to get their paperwork in and the such. And something that had already been assumed, and I thought she'd already announced this, but it became official in the last couple of days. But Emily Berge officially not running for re-election with the Eau Claire City Council. And, of course, she has had the role as City Council President the last 3 years. So her not running means that there will be a vacated seat and there will eventually be a new City Council President. She is going to focus solely on her Democratic bid for the congressional seat. And prepare yourself now, everybody. So you are going to, if you're annoyed by the weight loss commercials that are playing now, you will be dreaming of those weight loss commercials in just a few months after we are just flooded in this market with ads for that congressional race. Money is going to be, the TV stations in our area, sadly, they're not owned locally, so they're not really going to benefit as much, but the TV stations are going to have so much cash pouring on in, so much cash, it's going to choke up the hard drives on computers. It is going to be just stuffed in everywhere with the ad money that Berge will likely get and that you're going to get for all the other candidates. especially once the Democratic primary happens, and they officially have to zero in on who's going to go up against Derek Van Orden, and I would suspect there will be a lot of money coming in to support Van Orden to hold that Republican seat. It is a spot that has been bullseyed by the Democratic Party as one that could be flipped, and the Republicans know they're going to have to hold it, and you've got a very messy race on its way. But we will discuss that in due time, because right now, if you're annoyed by Bill Bertrand ads for One Automotive, trust me, you're not going to be annoyed by Bill Bertrand ads for One Automotive in a few months. You're going to be craving them. That stupid lawyer with the beard. You're going to be begging for the ads with the lawyer with the beard in just a few months. Emily Berge, she served for, again, 8 years total, last 3 as the council president. Now, here's what I want to focus on with this. It's justifiable to like Emily Berge. It's justifiable to not like Emily Berge. It's justifiable to have agreed or disagreed, and frankly to have swayed depending on decisions. What is lazy thinking is this, and it doesn't matter whether it was Berge announcing she wasn't going to run for re-election or pretty much anybody else in any other scenario, to just lump her in as bad because she was a council person and because she is liberal. If you really went through, you'd probably find things you liked about Emily Berge. She did vote against paid parking, for example. Now, we talked about it on this program a couple weeks ago. I wonder if part of her voting against paid parking was to make sure, looking ahead, she doesn't want to have any type of naughtiness in her desk drawer. Something like paid parking, which is not going to be liked come next summer when it goes into action, right during the heart of the primary, and then it carries over into the actual general election. It's not a big deal, but you don't want to give any type of ammunition to your opposition. I still wonder if that was part of it, why. But regardless, she probably voted for some things you liked. You probably voted for some things you didn't like. There's a lot of people that think that the city manager for Eau Claire, Stephanie Hirsch, her job status was saved by Emily Berge. Universally disliked as Stephanie Hirsch somehow still has the job. There are people that think that Emily Berge is the one that helped to keep her there. There's things to like. If you're somebody that very much has centered in on the homeless crisis in our community and trying to help the unhoused, she is somebody that has tried to champion for it, and whether things have worked or not worked, there's a lot of people that have been trying with the unhoused situation in this community and many others, and there hasn't been a lot of success in a number of avenues, but she is trying. That's something to like. But at the same time, it's immature. Yes, immature. So whether you like her or dislike her, that is entirely justifiable. But you shouldn't just lump her in as good riddance. She's ruining Eau Claire. Every city council person is ruining Eau Claire. I love hearing that, by the way. People say, oh, they're ruining Eau Claire. They're ruining the area, the city council people. I've heard that since I first moved to town in 2006. Folks, are there things that they do that we don't agree with? Absolutely. I'm not saying they've been brilliant. In fact, but we would say on this program, remember, there was about a 3-4 year period where we said the city council was kind of quiet. Didn't seem like they were doing much of anything, which was good. Now they've kind of stuck their nose back out with things like paid parking and the such. But the good thing, the bad things of this community aren't entirely on the city council, and they never get credit for the positive things that they're kind of like an official, like a sports official, that the less you hear, you never hear about the good things that they do. And trust me that there are good decisions. Sometimes the best decision they make is to not get involved. So again, it's lazy thinking to just lump her in as bad because she was a council person and she's a liberal. At the same time, it is immature. Yes, immature. The people I see on social media, who are no doubt surrogates of hers, or people that just want to support her, who say, quote unquote, you can't complain because you aren't doing it. Where is your application to run for office? Kind of the old Teddy Roosevelt man in the arena type thing, which sounds all strong and what have you, but there's some issues with the man in the arena discussion. For one, elected leaders like an Emily Berge, those especially at a local level, they should get acknowledgement that they are in fact doing a job the vast majority of us don't want to do. It's not easy to put yourself out there. This is not a full-time job, but it has full-time hours. And you're putting yourself out there, especially to take that first plunge and to run for office. Because you really are putting yourself out there. It's not the same way in today's generation, but remember when you and I were trying to get dates back in the day? You literally would have to stand there at the locker of the girl or the boy and ask them out, knowing or feeling as though all eyes were on you. And they either say yes or no. It was your first introduction to sales. And they either said yes or they said no. There's no hiding it. People could pat you on the back and say it's not personal. It's personal. Same thing here. It takes guts to put yourself out there, and it's not easy work to do. However, what do I always say? This is a contracted job. And people like Emily Berge, do it willingly and almost always because they like it and they want to do it. They're not doing it out of spite. They're not doing it out of being bullied into it. They want to do it. They are very much open for ridicule because it is our lives. Again, they are a contracted position. We don't want to have to look through all the paperwork. You and I don't have the time. We've got other skill sets that we want to focus on. We've got other things in our lives we want to focus on, other ways we want to serve the community. And I'll get to that in a moment. So we've said, okay, now we need you. You're going to focus on looking through this paperwork and making the decisions and what have you. They are open for ridicule because it is our lives. No different than you go hire the roofer, and if you don't like the job the roofer has done, you can complain. Rightfully so. You go to a restaurant. You don't like the food. We've had that big problem in this area, by the way, with restaurants, in that you're almost being told you can't complain. No. You should be smart about it, and you should have a little bit of empathy, but you can complain if a meal you've paid for, you've made the choice to go somewhere, and you don't like it. Now, should more people run for office? I will say that. We've had a big problem with getting people to run for office. Too many people have opinions and don't do anything. That is something you see a lot on social media. See a lot of the same names pop up. QOW, EAU, our page. They don't do... Some of these people, I don't see out and about in the community at all. They just are, but they've always got an opinion. If you're not going to run for office, and you don't have to necessarily run for office, because it might not be a strength of yours. You might not be very outgoing. You might not want... It just might not be something that would be a strong suit for you, and that's perfectly fine. But you can be active with organizations. You can be active with clubs, political or not political. You can be running a business. You can be volunteering with local organizations, all of that sort of thing. You can still be out and about in the community and helping out. You don't have to run to have an opinion, but you should still be an active part of the community. So when I saw Emily, that's my thought on Emily Berge stepping down, not running for re-election. She'll still be in her position the next few months until the election in the spring. But that's sort of my thought there. Don't be lazy thinkers out there. Don't automatically go, good riddance, she was awful. You can have that opinion, but the reality is a lot of you that have that opinion haven't really thought it through. You're just immediately, she's liberal and she's on the city council, they're all bad. Okay, you haven't really thought it through. At the same time, don't just blindly defend her as well and say, well, if you think you can do better, why don't you do it? That's a bad comeback. That's a really bad comeback. That's the sort of comeback, again, people use on the Eau Claire Foodies page, in which they go, oh, if you think you could cook it better, why don't you start up your own restaurant? It's not how this works, folks. All right, speaking of business, saw this one come down late on Tuesday, just before our show, and I think it warrants some discussion here. I'm going to try to pull, I got to make sure I get it up here, and I do have it up here on my computer. If you're watching on the YouTube, you see my eyes darting across here. So this came down late. It's one of those things we've done this before. You have stories and you go, well, I wonder whatever happened, especially if it's not in your sphere of influence. About a year ago, Leah Ritchie, she is the owner of the Iris Boutique in downtown Chippewa Falls. She was forced out of her downtown Chippewa Falls location due to damage to the building. Not her building, she leased it out with some other people that were leasing out spaces in that building. And it was about a year ago, a little more than a year ago, there was damage to the building. I think there was water damage to the roof or whatnot, and she was going to be pushed out of the building because she couldn't stay in there temporarily. So she ended up finding a temporary location, got some help from another local business, moved into a temporary location. Well, now you're a little more than a year later, and she has gone to Facebook to let everybody know that it appears that it's now the end of the road for her business, and she is firing shots at the company that is the commercial leaser of the building. I do recommend, if you have Facebook, a lot of you do, go find Iris Boutique on Facebook, and Leah Ritchie herself goes up and in at the commercial development, goes up and in. She says it perfectly herself. We'll hit some of the highlights here of what she writes, but in essence, what she is claiming is over the last year, she didn't get much of any communication from the people she was leasing from. She wasn't getting any type of feedback. She was not being given updates or anything like that. She claimed she had a lot of broken promises. She had herself, and this happens a lot with people that rent a space, she had poured a lot of money into that building to make renovations herself for her business without, thank yous or any type of reduction on rent, that kind of thing. So she says her last day she'll be open will be at the end of this month. She is very upset, believes that she might have to leave the area because right now she doesn't think there might be any other opportunities in the area. She is mad. She is pissed in this email, in this Facebook post. She is pissed. The commercial realty, and apparently, too, she didn't really even know she wasn't going to be able to go back into her building until she saw a for lease sign out in front of her former building. And I guess the place she's been in temporarily can no longer house her, so she can't be there. And that was, again, meant to be a temporary location anyway. The commercial realty organization is Ultra Commercial Realty, Amber Cerno House. Is that how I say it? Cerno House? Is that I feel somewhat bad for Amber, only if she is not the person that is ultimately the decision maker here. She just might be the agent with this, but her number and name is right there with Ultra Commercial Realty. Sadly, you hear this a lot. Now, on the positive side of these, remember back this summer in Menominee, there was a downtown business that burned down. They rebuilt the darn thing, got the individual back into their store by the fall. By the fall, they got him in there. But sadly, you hear this a lot. You have a lot of great situations where there's tenants and people that own the buildings and commercial developers and all of that. You've got a lot of great examples. A lot of the times because you don't hear anything. So when you don't hear anything, 95% of the time, it's good. But you do once in a while hear these negative experiences people have had. There was another business in Chippewa Falls just a few months ago. The Blue Marble Pub had they were there, they were paying their rent, and then they were told, hey, we're not going to renew your lease. And the people that own these buildings have got their reasons. We don't have the commercial realtors' side of this as to why they might have done this, what their plans are, that kind of thing. So I don't want to automatically make them out to be evil in this situation. But it is a reminder that if you are somebody in that position where you are in a position of power and others depend on you, whether it is you own a building, and there's a number of you out there, by the way, on a smaller scale, you own you own a house and you're letting somebody rent it from you. The whole flipping of house industry. All right, people that have rental properties, you yourself do it. But whether it's you're renting out some space at homes, whether you have commercial real estate, whether you are a business owner and you've got employees underneath you, ultimately your first responsibility is to yourself, your family, and your God. That is your first responsibility. But right behind it are the people that are below you that are relying on you. And you have to remember that a decision you make, don't make it cavalierly. If you're going to fire an employee, let an employee go. You can maybe make an argument that it's worthwhile because of X, Y, Z monetarily, but is it going to be worth the flesh and blood as to that? If you are somebody that rents out your home, you rent out a home, a property you have, and God, I'm going to raise the rent here, and I know this person isn't going to be able to handle that. You've got to weigh that a little bit. Do you raise the rent? They've been a good person to you. Do you cut deals? All that kind of thing. To Leah, Richie, and the people at Iris Boutique, I wish them the absolute best. It seems like it was an awful situation. It just seems like it was awful. It seems like there was no communication. It doesn't seem like there was any effort that was made there. I have a hard time wrapping my head around the idea that the commercial realtor didn't respond to anything. I just can't wrap my head around any of that. But alas, that's where we are. And again, I'm not sitting here, by the way, saying Leah's wrong either. Don't start putting words in my mouth with that. I feel bad. I feel bad. You hate, and hate's a strong word. You hate to see situations like this. You hate to see situations like this. And we are in a situation, by the way, in this area where I know we talk big about the business community in our area, but that doesn't mean we are overflowing to the point that we can be pushing out people that are entrepreneurs. And this Iris boutique, not Irish like the Irish, this Iris boutique had been around for a little bit. Now the next question is, it says it's for lease, by the way, so it's not like they have somebody. The Blue Marble Pub, I think they sold, they pushed them out because they had somebody else that was going to buy the lease. But here it doesn't seem that way. Moving on, by the way, happier stuff. Irvine Park lights are up and running. The lights at the county fairgrounds are back for another year. I think that started up the last couple of days as well. Irvine Park has been a yearly tradition for a number of people. We went there a number of years ago before the kids really got involved in a lot of activities. I wouldn't mind going back there. Still fun and whatnot. And if you're in Eau Claire, like we are, make a night of it. You go up to Chippewa Falls, get a nice meal, and then go see the lights. If you're in Chippewa Falls, you can do it a lot quicker, of course. The lights at the county fairgrounds, which is more the drive-through lights that you see in some other markets. I said this last year. I'm somewhat surprised they're back because I heard mixed reviews as to how many. I did not know many people that went through it. And you talk around, a lot of people didn't really go through it, so you wonder what their crowds were. Clearly they're back, so it must have done well last year. It's just like two guys. They're not associated with any business or whatever. If that is ever to get huge, the ones that are at the Eau Claire County Fairgrounds, if that's ever to get huge, my number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 points of advice to them would be latch on to a nonprofit. Latch on to a nonprofit, whether it's Feed My People, the American Cancer Society, Junior Achievement, any number, any nonprofit that's got some teeth in the area, that's a legitimate, well-funded, well-organized nonprofit already in the area. Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Boys and Girls Club. Latch on to a nonprofit, and a sizable portion of the ticket revenue, you get the money to help you cover your costs, maybe get a little bit to take home, take the family out to dinner, but a good portion of the ticket money ends up going to the nonprofit. Yes, you lose on the potential of revenue, but there's no way this is ever going to be a get-rich-quick scheme for you anyway. And now what ends up happening is you're able to utilize the marketing of these nonprofits. They already have their marketing arm. Most of these nonprofits have the ability, not all of them, you got to do your research, but a number of them, especially the ones I recognize, they call a TV station, they can get on the news like that. It's part of, I don't want to say guilt, but for TV stations, it's like, okay, we can't always make a monetary donation to this, but this is one thing we can do. We can give them as much coverage as they want. It's usually happy news or beneficial news that they are giving, so we'll bring them on. So they can get on. You then get the marketing. Plus, obviously, they've got their core group of supporters already. And you're giving back to the community even more than you would if this is just a for-profit thing. So that's my recommendation to the people at the county fairgrounds. A couple other things I wanted to throw in here quick. You saw this, Augusta, the school district in Augusta, a little outside of what we talk about, but they're considering an operational referendum, the school district of Augusta. And I suggest going back and listening to our most recent EduCast podcast, the EduCast podcast done with the Altoona School District. The most recent EduCast highlights why school budgets seem out of whack, why you're always seeing these referendums. Folks, can more cost-cutting measures be done at schools? Yeah. But to some extent, the math no longer is mathing, if that makes sense to you. You're getting to the point right now where, yeah, sure, you can cut a few more administrators. It's not going to do anything. It's the proverbial throwing decks off. It's literally throwing chairs off the deck of the Titanic. You fire a couple of administrators in the school building, it literally is throwing, because you and I would both admit some of these people are maybe not needed, but it's throwing chairs off the deck of the Titanic, which is sinking. It's not going to fix things. The key is schools need to be clever and nuanced in how it's presented to communities, and they also can't get defensive when telling people. And I think this most recent EduCast does a good job of really explaining it out to you as to why schools seem like they're chasing money, and it very much is a state issue. And then lastly, UW-Eau Claire is raising money to support its new canine dog therapy program with the University Police Department. Apparently they got a Labradoodle, a 10-month Labradoodle, a couple of months ago, and are now looking to raise $3,000 for training, vet visits, and the such. recent Dose of Dog episode we had highlighted the Chippewa Falls Police Department's canine therapy program that they've had in place for a couple of years now. And the thing with the canine program is they told the story on that Dose of Dog, for instance. There's a number of examples of this, but they told the story of kids in Chippewa Falls that were taken from a domestic scene, a domestic violence scene. You're breaking up the issue. What's going to happen with the kids? Well, while the kids are at the police station, and it's a horrible time for the family and all that, the dog is there. The kids are able to play with the dog. The kids are having, I don't want to say a good time, but it kind of distracts you. It is a therapy dog. And the same thing happens with adults, too. And the dog is there for the police officers when they need it and all that. So there's a lot of benefits. A number of people are huge dog fans. We've said it before. I'm not a huge dog person myself. I don't dislike dogs. But even if I was in a traumatic situation, if I had a dog that hopped on my lap or was there, it kind of calms you down. It centers you a little bit. There's a lot of benefits to having these canine programs out there, and happy to see the university's police department's got it, because you're dealing at the university with a lot of young adults. They are in that gray period. They're not kids. They're not adults yet. All right? There's elements of them that are still kids, which is a good thing. There's elements of them that are adults, but a lot of them are away from home. Does not hurt. All right, we're back with you on Thursday with another edition. Until then, Scott Montesano saying on behalf of everyone who made this podcast possible, there's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow shining at the end of every day. Make sure to take advantage of it. And until next time, so long, everybody.